Hi, I'm Nate Gottlieb, Public Relations Manager for the Minnesota Corn Growers Association. This year I'm going to farms around the state to learn the ins and outs of corn farming. It's been great to learn all about corn farming and I'm so glad you could join me. Today I'm visiting the family corn farm of Gary Prescher in Delavan, Minnesota. Gary's a fourth-generation corn and soybean farmer. He's also a crop scientist and chair of the Minnesota Corn Research and Promotion Council, a farmer group that invests funds to benefit all corn farmers in Minnesota. Gary's a great resource and he's got a lot to teach me about corn farming. So come along and let's learn more about corn farming. Hey Gary.
Welcome.
Thank you, it's good to see you.
Yeah, good. Glad you could be here.
Awesome, we got a great weather day today.
Yeah, another beautiful sunny, dry day here in south central Minnesota.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited to be here and to learn more about your farm, and let's get to it. Well, Gary, thanks for having me here today. I appreciate it. I'm just wondering if you could start just telling me about your farm and kind of where we are today.
Well, let's go back a couple generations.
Sure.
My great-grandfather on both sides of the family, the Wallace and the Prescher side, migrated, of course, over here like a lot of folks did back in the 1870s and 1880s in this part of the world. The Prescher side of it moved around some, finally settled on a farm in 1907, the homestead I call it, and things evolved from there. So I'm the fourth generation here. My wife Judy and I, we grew up around here, went to school around here, went to college, taught school, started farming in the 70s, started my teaching career as a science teacher. So I have a background in science, earth science and soils. So I tend to be a bit of a researcher, focus on my acres, like to try new things.
What do you like about farming? What do you enjoy about it?
Well, I love the seasons. Every year is different, every day can be different. Even though farming itself is cyclic and the things we do tend to be cyclic out here, there's no end to the choices that we can make in our day-to-day activities. I love to watch things grow, try new things. So here again, it was kind of in my blood as an educator. Learn as we go here, and every year, every day can be somewhat different out here. Every year can be different. So, and there's always new things that come along to try.
Gary, you're also an agronomist, and my understanding is that kind of means you're a crop scientist. I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit more about what that means to be an agronomist.
An agronomist looks at a lot of different cropping systems. Every farm is different in many different ways. So we take what we get from public research, for example, the University of Minnesota, and then we have industry over here doing its own thing. And then we have on-farm trials, research. And so that's more what I was involved with in terms of melding those three things together with growers and helping them to understand how to go about trying new things on their farm, basically on-farm trialing.
Well, sounds good. I'm excited to see your place. Thanks for answering all those questions. Should we go and get after it?
Sounds good. We're starting slowly to get ready for harvest here, so we're kind of going to take a look at things that are in process right now.
Well, Gary, tell me about where we are.
Well, we're in one of my cornfields, and this one happens to be on the homestead. The field was planted in early May. We were delayed a little bit by the spring. We had a lot of snow. Took a while for that to go away. We're thankful for the runoff, and it melted in because we had been in drought for the previous 2 years. So it looked like the pattern had changed with all the snow. And so when I planted the corn, I went with an offensive strategy. Okay, that's plenty of rain, plenty of fertility, cooler than hotter. What's happened is everything was going fine up until about the 4th of July here, and then it flipped. And we're more like Nebraska dry land here right now. We haven't had significant rain here for about a month. So what we want to look at today here, Nate, is some disease pressure, nitrogen shortage symptoms and disease symptoms. And then with the dry years, our corn rootworm populations continue to grow just because they like dry weather and survive more when they hatch. So I'll show you a couple things that I scout for right now in terms of rootworm management going forward here. Typically our genetics that most of us are using today, we want to see that big, tall, robust green plant. And we like to keep the ears down about where you see them here. If the ears get up above my head, that's not so good because you can lose more of them at harvest and if the wind blows. So the breeders have worked hard on bringing our ear placement down. This particular hybrid has more of an upright canopy that lets the sunlight through. These are solar collectors, right? Okay, it's a chemical factory here.
Yep.
Right? We collect sun in the day, take up water, convert all that at night to our sugars and starch, moves down into the root system, back up into the ear to make the grain. So we're respirating, we're storing carbon dioxide as we do that. Okay? Yeah. So based off the metrics I have on my sustainability survey that I've taken, I'm actually carbon neutral to slightly negative, so my field stores more carbon than we use to plant and harvest here. So normally we don't have any grasshopper feeding here, but it's been so dry they're starting to chew things up. So that's what this type of damage is here. You can see a little bit of edge of the field. They're more noticeable coming out of the grass this time of year.
So Gary, I just want to ask, is this the corn I would find in the grocery store if I were to go to my local supermarket?
No. No, absolutely not.
Okay.
This is what we call field corn. Grain is used for livestock, for renewable plastics, the starch industry, and then our ethanol production for fuels.
Yep. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the mechanism of how the crop grows and to what we see here? My understanding is that the crop kind of develops its leaves and reaches its full height first, and then it fills in the ear with the kernels and the grain.
Right. Well, there's kind of 4 critical times in a plant's life. When you put the seed in the ground, anything that's being born, that's a critical time. If it gets too cold or it gets starved for oxygen, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that happens when we flood the ground, wet, cold weather. The second critical time is kind of when the corn's about knee-high, about this tall, in mid-June to late June. That's when the first ear cells start to divide in the plant and separate from the plant cells. It's all stem cells, basically. So the plant says, I'm going to make an ear. And at that time, the basic cells that form the ear are created inside that corn plant when it's that tall. Then the next critical time starts about 10 days before we pollinate. The corn is in what I call, midlife, like you're young, you can deal with a lot of stress, you can get through life, ups and downs, get sick, get over it fast, okay? The corn plant's really durable that time. And these leaves are developing, the lower leaves, and that ear shoot is developing, and then about 10 days before pollination, everything starts to elongate. The cells are all in the plant to make the ear and the rest of the plant. So the cells elongate and it pushes the top of the plant out, these leaves from here on up, and it starts to push that ear shoot up so that it can be synced up with the pollen that comes off the tassel, the male part of the plant, and the silks, the female part of the plant. Once you have that kernel pollinated, the next critical window is just what we've gone through here the past 2 weeks. And that's where the plant decides just how many of those kernels it can support. Okay? If I pollinate 1,000 kernels on an ear, that's a big ear, that's a humongous ear, right? But it's easy figuring. If there's not enough light, too many cloudy days, too much smoke in the air, not enough water, if my plant has been too stressed before and it hasn't stored up enough nutrition to support all those kernels, now we have that adjustment period.
Well, Gary, we're going to talk a little bit about corn rootworm, is my understanding here.
Right. That's it's been a long-standing issue in certain areas of the Corn Belt, and Minnesota included. This farm has a long history of what we call northern corn rootworm diapause, where the beetles lay their eggs and then they skip 2 years, so the rotation doesn't help you as much. My easy scouting way is to look at the silk. This would be a normal silk. It hasn't been clipped. It really hasn't been fed on by a rootworm beetle. Once the beetles come out of the ground and mate, then they feed on the silks and the pollen. So that's their rich food source to make those eggs viable. When you compare these two here, see how that's clipped off there?
Yeah.
This one's clipped. That one's okay, this one's clipped. That's telling me I've got some beetle pressure out here. There's one that's clipped there, one there. So about at least 50% of them or more are clipped.
Oh, wow.
And this had insecticide on it, but no trait, okay?
So just tell me a little bit about tile drainage. It's something farmers do to improve conditions in the field, or how come farmers do it?
A lot of our rain comes in March, April, and May, and June. And so it would just sit there. And you had to wait for it to dry up.
Yeah.
You had to farm around it. You get stuck a lot, and it just wasn't very productive. So as our forefathers started draining the land, they put in drainage ditches. You're either going to have runoff or ponding.
Yeah.
And we still have that. You have a 5-inch rain event, you're going to have runoff and ponding.
Yep.
And in those areas where it ponds, you don't get a crop.
Yeah.
And on average around here, on any given farm, that was from 10 to 20% of the farm had potholes.
Okay.
Where you'd either, when I started farming, you would lose the crop or you couldn't plant it and get anything off it, okay?
Yeah.
And if you have runoff, if you're lucky enough to have a piece of ground like this where the water runs off, you have surface erosion, all right? So the subsurface drainage helps control runoff because it acts more like a sponge in terms of taking excess water through the tile lines into the drainage system. And it's filtered so we don't lose our phosphorus. And most phosphorus is lost to surface runoff. Okay, so you have to pick your battle out here in terms of unintended consequences. All right, so as we tile the land out and improve drainage, we have less runoff issues, less surface erosion issues. I want to keep the good soil where it is, not in the ditches or creeks or lakes.
Well, it's been great to kind of see the equipment and to learn about the field conditions and stuff. Maybe now can we go take a look at where the grain goes once it's harvested? And
right, our drying setup is just over here. Let's take a look at that.
Well, Gary, it's been great learning about your crops today and how the growing season works. I'm wondering if you can tell me where we are now and what's going on here.
Well, this is what we would call a modern grain drying setup. You have the scale here, everything goes over scale, and these dumps are to be used with semis now that we have 2 dumping ends out of the semis unload underneath. And it only takes about 2 minutes to empty a semi now. Goes up into the leg, comes over here. This would be the wet corn bin.
Okay.
So you can dry 24/7, you don't have to pick 24/7. So the combines today have capacity to pick a lot of corn in an hour, so you don't have to work 24 hours a day. That's the real bottleneck of corn production is harvest, because of the amount of material we hope to haul away, amount of bushels.
Sure.
So we have wet corn storage here, goes up into the dryer. That's a continuous flow dryer, basically. So it's corn moving through it basically all the time.
Okay.
Comes out dry, and then it's moved either into the storage bin here or behind us there, where it's stored until it's taken to market. That's in a nutshell, that's how it works here. It's basically automated.
Well, Gary, it's been great being out here today, and I really appreciate you taking the time to teach me about your farm and everything that goes on here. So thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate you taking time to learn a little bit more about what's happening out here in our neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining me for another episode of Nate on the Farm. I appreciate you coming out here today with me, and tune in next time to learn more about corn harvest and everything that goes into finishing a successful crop.
Not good? Try it again. Is that good?
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah?
Not very sweet. So tell me a little bit just about tile drainage. It's something farmers do to kind of make it so there's less moisture, or maybe I'll say that.
In here. Okay. Great. You ready? Yep. Probably is what I have on here.
Sure.
It's just easy math, 30,000.
Okay.
30,000 plants times 200 is how many acres?
Oh, it's 6 million or 60 million?
6 million acres.
6 million,
right?
yeah.